Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi, bringing you this special broadcast of top stories from our studios here in the National Capital Region, styled exclusively by none other than Paul Mall, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a huge list of stories to cover. Of course, that Apple state-sponsored hacking advisory is something that people can't stop talking about. Chandrababu Naidu, the former Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister, he's out on a 4-week interim bail. Furor in the national capital vis-a-vis summons to Arvind Kejriwal, the national convener of the Aam Aadmi Party. Apart from that, we're going to bring you stories from poll-bound states in our Mandate 2023 segment. We'll also bring you the latest updates from war-torn West Asia. It's the 25th day of the Israel-Hamas conflict, and that's not all. We're also going to touch upon climate-centric stories vis-a-vis the Australian and Bolivian wildfires. To stay on and stick on with us, but first and foremost, our top story right now, because there's another incident of violence that has been reported from the conflict-ridden region of Manipur. Now, in Manipur, a sub-divisional police officer named Chingtham Anand was shot dead by suspected tribal militants. This attack happened at More in Manipur's Tengnopal district. Now, police authorities informed that Anand received a severe bullet injury after a group of insurgents fired upon a group of policemen who at that particular time, when the attack took place, were inspecting the newly constructed helipad in More. Now, More, it's again important to note here, is a border town which is dominated by people belonging predominantly to the Kuki-Zo community. Now, the injured SDPO was taken to a primary healthcare center in More, where he later succumbed to his injuries. The police, at this point in time, all we have is a set of pictures, but the police has launched an operation in the area to apprehend the insurgents. Meanwhile, Chief Minister N. Biren Singh, he took to the microblogging website X, formerly known as Twitter, and said that he was deeply saddened by the cold-blooded killing of the SDPO. The tweet on your television screens. He says, deeply saddened by the cold-blooded killing of SDPO Chingtham Anand, who's the OC of More Police this very morning. His dedication to serve and protect the people will always be remembered. The perpetrators will be brought to justice. The Chief Minister, N. Biren Singh, he's also vowed that the perpetrators are going to be brought to justice, but the incident, again important to note, comes weeks after several civil society organizations, particularly those based in More, demanded the removal of state forces from the border town. But the news that we're tracking at this point in time is that another incident of violence has been reported from the conflict-ridden region of Manipur. Certainly a tragic moment again coming out of the hill state, where a sub-divisional police officer named Chingtham Anand was shot dead by suspected tribal militants at the More's border town in Manipur's Tengnopal district. Police authorities have informed that Anand received a severe bullet injury after a group of insurgents fired upon a group of policemen. It's being told, a lot of sources out there telling us that in fact a sniper was used from a far-flung area to kill the police officer. The police party was actually inspecting a newly constructed helipad in More when the attack took place. Well, let's now shift our focus to what's been termed as Apple Snoopgate. Why? Well, because key opposition leaders, including Trinamool Congress's Mahua Moitra, Shiv Sena's Priyanka Chaturvedi, and Congress leaders Shashi Tharoor and Pawan Khera, they've all posted images of alerts that they have received on their iPhones about a possible hacking attempt by quote-unquote state-sponsored actors. Now, the warnings received on their phones and sent by the manufacturers said about state-sponsored attackers trying to compromise their phone. The message says, and I quote, Apple believes you are being targeted by state-sponsored attackers who are trying to remotely compromise the iPhone associated with your Apple ID, unquote. Now, Apple, the company, however, issued a denial suggesting that, and I quote, Apple does not attribute the threat notifications to any specific state-sponsored attacker. State-sponsored attackers are very well funded and sophisticated, and their attacks evolve over time. Detecting such attacks relies on threat intelligence signals that are often imperfect and incomplete. Now, it's possible that Apple threat notifications may be false alarms, or that some attacks are not detected at all. We are unable to provide information about what causes us to issue threat notifications. Now, Apple also said that as that may help state-sponsored attackers adapt their behavior to evade detection in the future. That's why we're not putting that information out. Now, the Bharatiya Janata Party, it has too come out and rejected the charge. Many people from the opposition were erstwhile saying that it's in fact political vendetta at the hands of the central government. On the other hand, the central government has come out and said that it's not in fact us. The Union Communications Minister Ashwini Vaishnav also spoke to the press this very afternoon, talking to them about how an investigation has been launched into the matter. Now, the party's IT cell chief, Amit Malviya, whose tweet you're also seeing on your screens, said that the attack charge will in all probability end up as a damp squib. Why not wait for Apple to clarify, asks Amit Malviya. Or is that too much to let go an opportunity to outrage? Another question that was posted by Amit Malviya. Now, the Bharatiya Janata Party also outrightly rejected the phone hacking claims, even as the opposition alliance is linking it to the charges that they have been bringing against Adani as well. Union Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnav, he expressed concerns at the statements made by the members of parliament, most of them, and it seems like all of them, from the opposition. Now, Ashwini Vaishnav said that information on the issue given by the company Apple seemed vague and non-specific in nature. He also brought to notice that Apple had said that some of its threat notifications may be false alarms. Now, Ashwini Vaishnav, he also went on to say that the government will investigate the case and get to the root cause of these notifications. He also informed that the government had asked Apple to join the investigation and provide with accurate information on the alleged state-sponsored attacks.
Friends, these compulsive critics, they have only one habit. Whenever they don't have any major issue, the only thing they'll say is surveillance. This they have tried few years back. We conducted a proper investigation. The matter was supervised by the Honorable Judiciary also. Nothing came out of that investigation, including Ms. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra. She said that her 2 children's phones were hacked, but nothing of that sort had actually happened. So this is a falsehood that some compulsive critics are trying to spread. They want to distract the country, they want to distract the people from the progress that the country is making under Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's leadership.
The last Pegasus inquiry, where, I mean, my name was also there, that sort of disappeared, right? So that tells you the situation in the country. Our job as opposition is to make people understand what is going on. And I'm very happy that more and more people are understanding what is going on. It's very clear. And this is clearly a sign of panic, right? This is clearly, I mean, this is not just one person, this is the whole opposition. So this is obviously, this is not done by somebody who's not scared, or this is not done by somebody who's honest or who believes in themselves. This is the work of criminals, of thieves. Only thieves and criminals would want to do this. मगर हम डरने वाले नहीं हैं, हम लड़ने वाले लोग हैं, हम पीछे नहीं हटेंगे. जितनी टैपिंग करनी है कर लो, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, मुझे तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. अगर आपको मेरा फोन चाहिए मैं दे देता हूं, आपको उठा के ले लो.
They have a history of what I call this kind of peeping Tom behavior. Now that they've come to Delhi, they can't get rid of it. So in 2021, if you remember, there was this Pegasus spyware which they bought from Israel and it went to court and nothing came of it. And this is the second time that obviously 24 is coming up and they want to distract from the main issues.
बड़ी दुख की बात है कि सुबह ये जानकारी मिली और इस तरह का मैसेज कंपनी के माध्यम से मोबाइल पर पहुंचा है और ये जो मैसेज बता रहा है कि आपका स्टेट एजेंसी या स्टेट की तरफ से हैक किया जा रहा है या जासूसी की जा रही है. तो बड़े दुख की बात है आज हमारे डेमोक्रेसी में, लोकतंत्र में आज़ादी और आपकी प्राइवेसी को भी ये किस लिए उसको ख़त्म करना चाहते हैं. आखिरकार जासूसी किस लिए? और इस सीमा तक कि जो पार्टी के बड़े नेता हैं, पार्टियों के बड़े नेता हैं, उनके मोबाइल सर्वेलेंस में ले लिए जाएं, उनकी जानकारी हो जाए, ये बड़ा दुखद है और डेमोक्रेसी में इसके लिए कोई जगह नहीं है। इसकी जांच हो, सरकार जांच करके बताएगा क्यों ऐसा चल रहा है।
जी, जिस तरीके से रात को मुझे ये वार्निंग आई है, मैं 15-20 साल से एप्पल यूज़र रही हूँ, कभी इस तरीके की वार्निंग नहीं आई है। तो एक सीरियस वार्निंग थी जहाँ पे वो डूज एंड डोंट्स भी बता रहे थे हमें कि क्या हमें करना चाहिए टू सेफगार्ड हमारे जो भी डेटा है। तो दिखाता है किस तरह, और बहुत स्पष्ट तरीके से कहा है स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड है। ये जो अटैक हो रहे हैं स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड हैं। हमारा स्टेट कौन, सरकार कौन? तो वो क्लियरली ये बता रहा है ये केंद्र सरकार की तरफ से प्रायोजित कार्यक्रम है और इस पे आप सावधानी बरतिए। और आज सवेरे जब पता चला कि बहुत सारे ऑपोजिशन के एमपीज हैं जिनको इस तरीके की ईमेल आई है, वार्निंग आई है, तो मैं बस यही कहना चाहूंगी, पेगासस का किस्सा हो चुका, उसको खारिज करने की पूरी कोशिश की गई, पार्लियामेंट में उस पर चर्चा नहीं हुई। अदानी के भ्रष्टाचार पे कोई चर्चा नहीं हो रही है, उनके बचाव के लिए इस तरीके के कार्यक्रम हो रहे हैं। सब जानते हैं कि ऑपोजिशन में कौन वोकल वॉइसेस हैं और ऑपोजिशन के ही एमपीज को ये मैसेज आ रहे हैं, तो यानी ये लार्ज स्केल सर्वेलेंस हो रहा है जो स्टेट प्रायोजित है। तो मैं बस यही कहूंगी कि इस पे जांच होनी चाहिए और केंद्र सरकार को इस पे स्पष्टीकरण देना चाहिए। दिखाता है कि इस तरीके से जैसे जैसे चुनाव सामने आ रहा है, 2024 का चुनाव हो या ये 5 राज्य के चुनाव हो जहां पे इनकी हार बिल्कुल तय है भारतीय जनता पार्टी की, उसी बौखलाहट से इंडिया अलायंस और मजबूत होता जा रहा है। उस बौखलाहट से, घबराहट से ये लोग इस तरीके का कार्यक्रम शुरू कर रहे हैं। आपने सुप्रीम कोर्ट में मनीष सिसोदिया जी का पूरा कार्रवाई सुनी होगी, जहां कहा ये 2 मिनट ट्रायल कोर्ट में भी नहीं रहेगा आर्ग्यूमेंट अगर रहता है, फिर बेल डिनायल हो जाती है, फिर उसी के बाद अरविंद केजरीवाल जी को बुलाया जाता है। तो ये पूरा का पूरा ईडी, सीबीआई, आईटी जो काम कर रही है वो केंद्र सरकार के बोलने पे काम हो रहा है।
एप्पल ने अपना वक्तव्य जारी किया है और उन्होंने इस बात को माना कि इस प्रकार के जो ट्रिगर हैं वो 150 देशों में कई यूज़र्स को उन्होंने भेजे हैं। उसका कारण क्या है वो एप्पल खुद नहीं जानता। तो एप्पल की इन्वेस्टिगेशन के आधार पर अगर वो ये नहीं बता पा रहे हैं कि ये नोटिफिकेशन क्यों गया है, तो इसमें भारत सरकार को लेकर उन पे आरोप लगाने का कोई औचित्य नहीं है और विपक्ष के पास कोई मुद्दे नहीं हैं। इसलिए कभी पेगासस को लेकर, कभी एप्पल से आए नोटिफिकेशन को लेकर समय समय पर सरकार पर बेबुनियाद आरोप लगाते रहते हैं।
Well, shifting our focus to the state of Maharashtra, where the Maratha agitation continues to boil over. Traffic on the Pune-Bangalore highway in Pune's Navale Bridge area was blocked on Tuesday as a large number of protesters staged an agitation over the demand for Maratha reservation and burnt several tires. The protests have turned violent, leading the police to ramp up security at residential and official premises of key political leaders and step up patrolling as well. On Monday, the 30th of October, the protests over reservation for the Maratha community turned violent in various parts of the state's Marathwada region, with protesters resorting to arson and vandalism, targeting the houses of 2 Nationalist Congress Party, the NCP, MLAs and municipal building in Beed. Agitators also vandalized the office of a BJP MLA in Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar district and damaged several state-owned buses as road blockades were held in various parts of Marathwada. A senior officer from Pune City Police has said, and I quote, "Overall deployment in the city, the police patrolling and vigil have been stepped up. Measures have also been stepped up in Pimpri Chinchwad and Pune rural jurisdiction areas as well." Now, Beed's Superintendent of Police, Nand Kumar Tiryambak Thakur, has said that a total of 12 offences have been registered after the incidents in Beed were recorded and close to 400 people have been identified. 55 people have already been taken into custody. 12 FIRs have been arrested still now. He informed that further investigation is underway and strong action is going to be taken against the perpetrators.
अभी हमारी सरकार ये राज्य में कानून व्यवस्था बनाए रखने की पूरी कोशिश कर रही है। इस आंदोलन में कौन भड़काने का काम करता है, कौन ये आगजनी कर रहा है, कौन कानून व्यवस्था यहाँ पर बिगाड़ने की कोशिश कर रहा है, निश्चित रूप से मराठा समाज को पूरी तरह फुल प्रूफ जो टिकाऊ होगा, कानून के दायरे में जो बिठाने के बाद ये मराठा आरक्षण देने का सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है।
जिस प्रकार की घटना बीड़ में हुई है इसका समर्थन नहीं किया जा सकता। मराठा आरक्षण के संदर्भ में राज्य की सरकार पूर्ण रूप से सकारात्मक है। कुछ निर्णय आज भी मंत्रिमंडल ने लिए हैं। लॉन्ग टर्म में इस प्रश्न को छुड़ाने के लिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट की क्यूरेटिव पिटीशन भी अभी मेंशन की गई है और सुप्रीम कोर्ट उसको सुनने वाला है। ऐसे समय कुछ लोग जानबूझकर हिंसा फैलाने का जो प्रयास कर रहे हैं, ऐसी हिंसा को बर्दाश्त नहीं किया जाएगा।
And next up, news from Andhra Pradesh, where former Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu has been released from the Rajahmundry jail today after being granted a 4-week interim bail, this in the skill development scam case. Now he's been granted bail on health grounds. Massive celebrations broke out in Rajahmundry and other parts of Andhra Pradesh once Mr. Naidu walked out of jail. Andhra Pradesh High Court has, however, restrained Chandrababu Naidu from participating in political rallies or giving interviews whilst he's on bail. Chandrababu Naidu, who was asked to furnish a bail bond of Rs 1 lakh in addition to the 2 sureties of a similar amount, must surrender before the jail superintendent before 5 p.m. on the 28th of November. He has been given permission to receive treatment at a hospital of his choice, but must submit medical reports to the court. Naidu was arrested on the 9th of September 2023 by the CID in connection with the multi-crore skill development scam. Let's take a look at what the skill development scam actually is. Now, in the year 2014, Chandrababu Naidu set up a skill development corporation. The aim of the corporation was to provide skill to unemployed youth. The corporation's job was to provide e-learning to registered students. Now, the Naidu government signed memorandums of understanding with Siemens India to set up centers. As per the memorandums of understanding, the total cost of the project was Rs 3,356 crore rupees. The state government was only going to provide 10% as a grant in aid. Rest was going to be borne by Siemens. Now, in the year 2015, Naidu inaugurated 17 of these centers. But what was this scam actually about? In the year 2021, Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy blamed Chandrababu Naidu for the skill development scam. Key allegations were the release of Rs 371 crore by Naidu in the first 3 months of the project. Siemens, which was to bear major cost, did not even spend a single dime. 130 crore rupees was spent on the project and 241 crore rupees were diverted towards shell companies. Companies were meant to provide software but actually did not provide anything at all. Money sent to these companies was based on fake invoices. Now, several statements that were made out by the CID. The CID said that attempts were made to destroy critical documentary evidence. The CID said that Naidu and the TDP were the ultimate beneficiaries of the scam. The CID also said that Naidu was the chief conspirator and the prime mover of the alleged scam. And the CID also said that Naidu facilitated the transfer of public funds to the private entities. Chandrababu Naidu right now out on interim bail till the 28th of November. And next up, ladies and gentlemen, stories from the 5 poll-bound states in a segment Mandate 2023. First up, in Rajasthan, where Congress leader and former Deputy Chief Minister of the state, Sachin Pilot, has filed his nominations for the upcoming assembly elections. Sachin Pilot is going to be contesting from the Tonk assembly seat. On his way to file his nomination, Sachin Pilot also held a roadshow in the constituency, where Pilot said that he had been asked by Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge to forget and forgive the past events and focus on the upcoming elections to ensure that the Congress party once again forms the government in Rajasthan. Asked about the party's chief ministerial face, Pilot said that the decision will be made by the party high command after winning the election. Rajasthan will be going to polls on the 25th of November and the counting for the same will take place on the 3rd of December.
खड़गे जी ने कहा माफ करो भूलो आगे बढ़ो। मैं उस लाइन पर चल रहा हूँ। माफ करो जी कहा किसी ने भूल जाओ आगे की तरफ देखो और मैं तो अपने सपनों के लिए जिम्मेदार हूँ। कोई और क्या बोलता है ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है। हमें तो पार्टी को जिताना है, सरकार बनानी है, ताकि 2024 में इंडिया की सरकार बने, कांग्रेस की सरकार बने और बीजेपी को चुनाव हरा पाए। चेहरा पार्टी का कोई ऐसा घोषित होता नहीं कभी भी। हम मिलकर चुनाव लड़ेंगे, बहुमत आने के बाद जो विधायक चाहेंगे, जिसको नेतृत्व जिम्मेदारी देगा, वो सरकार का नेतृत्व करेगा। लोगों की भावना अलग हो सकती है, लेकिन प्रक्रिया पार्टी में ये है कि चुनाव जीतने के बाद बहुमत आता है और बहुमत के आधार पर नेतृत्व तय करता है कौन सरकार को लीड करेगा।
Moving on to Chhattisgarh, where the regional party Janata Congress Chhattisgarh President Amit Jogi, he's filed his nomination papers from Patan Assembly seat, from where Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel is also contesting. Now, Jogi said that his fight is against corruption and not against the Chief Minister Baghel. He claimed that he is the face of the people of Patan, who are facing problems like corruption, dynastic politics, and government's unfulfilled promises.
मैंने आज पाटन से अपना नामांकन भरा है। ये चुनाव मैं भूपेश के खिलाफ नहीं, भ्रष्टाचार के खिलाफ लड़ रहा हूं। यह चुनाव एक बेहद ताकतवर दाऊ परिवार बनाम पाटन के गरीब, अनुसूचित जाति, जनजाति, अति पिछड़ा वर्ग के लोगों के अधिकार का चुनाव है। मैं तो केवल चेहरा हूं, प्रत्याशी तो पाटनवासी हैं। प्रत्याशी तो पीएससी घोटाला पीड़ित है, आवास पीड़ित है, भ्रष्टाचार पीड़ित है, वादा खिलाफी पीड़ित है, नियमितीकरण पीड़ित है, शराबबंदी पीड़ित है। मैं तो भ्रष्टाचार के विरुद्ध इन सभी पीड़ितों का प्रतिनिधित्व कर रहा हूं।
Next up, a story from another poll-bound state, this time Telangana, because ahead of state assembly elections in Telangana, the Congress has set up a mock ATM machine called Kaleshwaram ATM to criticize the BRS party. The Congress has coined the slogan Kaleshwaram Corruption Rao for its campaign against Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao. The party claims that the BRS government has embezzled a significant amount of funds allocated for the Kaleshwaram lift irrigation project. The project, which suffered damages due to floods, has been a source of controversy since its inception. Additionally, the Congress party is shedding light on the problem of child marriages in the state, deeming it a matter of national disgrace. Meanwhile, in Telangana, Hyderabad's district election officer Ronald Rose said that the nomination papers will be received on all working days from the 3rd of November till the 10th of November between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Will start and the returning officer will publish the form on notice duly indicating the date and time of the collection of nomination papers as well as the location in which it will be collected. From November 3 onwards, the nominations can be filed in these 15 constituencies of Hyderabad district till November 10th. And the last date for submission of Form 6 and 8 is today, that's October 31st. And whatever forms which have come till today, it will be disposed of before November 10. And the epic card also will be sent to the concerned voters for the purpose of voting.
Next up, latest updates coming from the 25th day of the Israel-Hamas war in conflict-ridden West Asia. Now, today marked the 25th day since Israel suffered potentially the worst attack in its brief history as a nation. Hamas had carried out those deadly attacks on the southern Israel front on the 7th of October. And here's the latest update from the war front. At least 8,525 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza. This includes 3,542 children. The Israeli Defense Forces has claimed that it hit 300 new targets in its latest rounds of strikes over the Gaza Strip. The Israeli ministry has said that the number of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza has now risen to 240. Now, the IDF claims that it intercepted hostile drones fired from the Red Sea area. The Houthi government in Yemen has claimed responsibility for these drone attacks. The Al-Qassam Brigade claimed that it targeted 2 Israeli tanks and bulldozers in northwest Gaza with missiles. The latest coming in from the 25th day from across the Gaza Strip. Israeli forces are continuing to escalate their offensive in Gaza, attacking the main northern city from both the sides. The Israeli Defense Forces released videos depicting ground operations and airstrikes on Hamas targets. The military reported the killing of 4 prominent Hamas operatives as well. Meanwhile, Hamas terrorists claim to have repelled an attempted Israeli tank push into the Gaza city and engaged in border clashes. The situation remains highly tense and fluid in this particular region. The tank movements has certainly been escalated in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, even as the Israeli Defense Forces have pushed out their final advisory asking everybody in North Gaza to sincerely move towards the south as it expands its ground offensive in the Gaza Strip. Airstrikes, tanks and reservist army on the ground inside the Palestinian enclave. But even as Israeli forces launched an attack on Gaza's main northern city, escalating a major ground offensive in the Palestinian enclave, there are increased international calls for civilian protection. Both sides report clashes and casualties, with the Israeli military stating that they have eliminated 4 prominent Hamas operatives. The situation remains tense as these events unfold. But in an official statement, Israeli Army spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari has confirmed a gradual expansion of the ground operation in Gaza that's going according to plan.
מתקדמים באופן מדורג על פי התוכניות המבצעיות שלנו. הפעילות ההתקפית תתמשך ותתעצם לפי שלבי המלחמה ומטרותיה. עד כה הודענו למשפחותיהם של 312 חללי צה"ל ולמשפחותיהם של 239 חטופים. השבת החטופים היא משימה לאומית עליונה. הפעילות הקרקעית שלנו ברצועת עזה משרתת בין היתר את המטרה הזאת. סוגיית החטופים איננה רק סוגיה לאומית, היא סוגיה עולמית. ילדים, נשים וקשישים, ישראלים ובני לאומים אחרים מוחזקים על ידי ארגון רצחני שביצע פשע מלחמה, ביצע פשע נגד האנושות כולה בממדים בלתי נתפסים.
Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he's come out and condemned the Hamas's cruel psychological propaganda as the terrorist group released another video showing 3 Israeli hostages inside the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have intensified their ground offensive in the Gaza's northern city, targeting over 600 terrorist sites. Palestinian civilians face dire shortages of fuel, food and clean water amid the escalating conflict that is now entering its 4th week. Let's listen in to what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had to say.
אנחנו נלחמים על הבית ואנחנו ננצח בעזרת האנשים האלה ואחרים שחדורים ברוח לחימה, ברוח הקרבה, ברוח הניצחון. תודה לכם.
And like we mentioned, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the hostage video released by terror group Hamas on the 30th of October. Netanyahu called the video as quote-unquote cruel psychological propaganda. Israel said its forces freed a soldier from Hamas captivity during the ground offensive in Gaza as well.
Israel's Prime Minister condemned a video that Hamas had released on Monday that shows 3 female hostages seized by the Islamist movement on October 7th. In the video, which is being watched on this phone, one of the hostages criticizes Benjamin Netanyahu for failing to protect Israeli citizens during the deadly attack and failing to get them back home. She purportedly calls for a deal to secure their release in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. Netanyahu, in a statement, condemned the clip from Hamas as cruel propaganda. Israel's leader is coming under pressure over his handling of the crisis. Dozens of people attended a protest in Tel Aviv to call for the hostages' release. Shiri Grossbard is a close friend of one of the hostages, Yelena Tripanov.
I'm not a political person. I'm not the one with the answers, but I do know this. No other country in the world would have 239 of their people being kept hostage and not do anything about it. No politics, just bring them home now. 24 days is way too long for these people to be kept in captivity.
According to Israeli authorities, at least 239 hostages were taken captive by Hamas gunmen during the October 7th attack, which killed at least 1,400 people. The presence of the hostages in Gaza has complicated Israel forces' ground operation in the enclave, but Netanyahu has rejected calls for a ceasefire. Gaza health authorities say more than 8,300 people, many of them children, have been killed in Israeli attacks since Hamas' assault.
The ground action actually creates the possibility, not the certainty, but the possibility of getting our hostages out, because Hamas will not do it unless they're under pressure. They simply will not do it.
On Monday, Israel said its forces had freed their first hostage during its Gaza ground offensive, a female soldier who Hamas captured in its October 7th raid. Israel's security agency released a photo of the soldier, Ori Megadish, surrounded by family members after her rescue. In her hometown of Kiryat Gat, residents cheered after news of her release. Since the October 7th attack, Hamas has released 4 hostages through back-channel efforts coordinated by Qatar.
Now, on the 7th of October, as Hamas undertook a brutal attack on Israel, the much-touted intelligence forces of the West Asian nation were caught completely off guard. The Israeli administration has admitted to an intelligence failure on their part and promised to launch a thorough investigation into determining what went wrong on that fateful day of the 7th of October. An investigation by prominent American daily analyzed the failures of Israel that led to the Hamas attack. The investigation, based on dozens of interviews with Israeli, Arab, European and American officials, as well as on a review of several official documents of the Israeli government, narrowed down the factors which led to this kind of an attack by Hamas. There are 4 such factors. Let's tell you more about them. The first one is that the Israeli government under Benjamin Netanyahu ignored several warnings issued by the intelligence and military outfits. In July this year as well, which is just about 3 months before the Hamas attack, 2 senior generals from the Israeli army had addressed the Knesset, delivering urgent warnings about an impending attack on Israel. This was the time when Benjamin Netanyahu was looking to push through the legislations which put curbs on the judiciary and emboldened his own government. The generals warned that the political turmoil inside Israel was in turn emboldening Israel's enemies like Iran, Syria, Hamas, Hezbollah and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The general said these entities believed that this was Israel's moment of weakness and an opportune moment to strike. Now, this briefing, however, was attended by only 2 members of the Knesset, while the legislation curbing the judicial powers were passed overwhelmingly, in turn deepening the political turmoil in Israel. General Herzi Halevi, one of the 2 aforementioned generals, even tried warning Netanyahu in a separate meeting, but the Prime Minister refused to meet Halevi altogether. According to the New York Times' investigation, the Israeli government also ignored warnings coming in from Jordan. The Jordanian government, which is the custodian of the holy sites in Jerusalem, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, too issued warnings to Israel, but these warnings too were ill received by the Israeli administration. The second factor which allowed the October 7th attack was Israeli intelligence and security's over-focused approach towards threats from Hezbollah and Iran, which led to a neglect of the threat from Hamas. As per the NYT investigation, ever since Hamas evolved into a governing power of Gaza in 2007, the Israeli authorities thought they could contain Hamas with an extensive network of human spies, sophisticated surveillance tools and border fortifications. Israeli officials viewed Hamas as a regional threat and not as a global terrorist organizations like the Hezbollah or the Islamic State. Taking the eye off the Hamas lets the terror group regain strength and work silently to launch such an attack on Israel. The investigation also focuses on Benjamin Netanyahu's alleged strategy of building Hamas as a way to balance power against Palestinian Authority, which controls the West Bank and has long sought a peace agreement with Israel in exchange for a Palestinian state. The NYT article claims that Netanyahu often told his aides that a feeble Palestinian Authority would lower the pressure on him to make concessions to the Palestinians. The fourth factor is that the Israeli officials firmly believed that the 40-mile-long wall was enough to completely seal off Gaza and protect them from any attacks. They believed that the combination of remote surveillance and machine gun systems along with a massive barrier wall would make it almost impossible to infiltrate Israel. But the Hamas was smart and displayed strict discipline to breach the wall. The terror group used explosive drones that damaged the cellular antenna and the remote firing systems that protected the fence wall. Hamas claimed that it used 35 drones in the opening strike on the wall. Secondly, the Hamas terrorists divided themselves into several small groups, each of which swarmed the wall at close to 30 different locations, making it extremely difficult for the Israeli forces to fix the breach in the first place. Meanwhile, in Israel's long war on Hamas, IDF will likely need to engage in urban warfare inside the Gaza Strip. Urban warfare has often proved to be bloody and exacting in nature. Military operations in urban terrain is the hardest type of warfare that any nation can ask its military to conduct. Casualties tend to be 3 to 6 times greater in city streets than in open landscapes. Let's take a look at this current situation in Gaza. The urban warfare, which is many are questioning, is it going to be bloodier than what it was in Iraq? More than 8,000 people have been killed. Over 3,000 of them are children. 1/10 of Gaza has been destroyed. 280,000 have been rendered homeless. 0.3% population has been killed across the Gaza Strip. Now, America and its allies, alongside Iraqi soldiers, conducted urban warfare in Mosul in Iraq in the year 2016-17 to weed out ISIS. It was a deadly exercise and incurred heavy loss of lives and destruction of property. Now, the battle for Mosul was bitter urban warfare in the Iraqi town in 2016-17. Almost 9,000 lives were lost, almost 0.6% of the city's population, most residential buildings damaged, 9 lakh civilians fled the city completely. Now, Gaza is a densely populated enclave, and urban warfare in Gaza Strip will be very challenging because of a number of reasons. Geography is less permissive for escaping Egypt. Egypt is not opening its borders to refugees. Israel has ordered Gazans to leave North Gaza before the attack. Half of North Gaza's 1.1 million population did not leave on Israel's advisory. Israel is also striking parts of South Gaza, and urban warfare in Gaza is self-contained within the enclave. Gaza's healthcare system is crippled due to attacks. Israel is not keen on sending civilian aid to Gaza. Now, urban warfare in Gaza is likely to be bloodier and deadlier than the one in Mosul. But why Gaza can be bloodier than Mosul? Here's why. ISIS held Mosul for only 2 years. Hamas is deeply embedded in Gaza. Hamas defenses built under civil infrastructures. That's again important to note. Israel's offensive in Gaza is very intensive, with 6,000 bombs that have been dropped in 1 week. The United States and allies have dropped 7,000 bombs in Mosul in over 2 months. Here we're talking about 6,000 bombs dropped within 1 week. The IDF has little affinity with Palestinian civilians in Gaza, and the liberation forces in Iraq wanted to free co-patriots from ISIS. Mosul hospitals were struck after long periods of warnings, and Israel is striking hospitals in Gaza that Hamas use as their own base. In Mosul, civilians hated the ISIS and helped liberation forces. Israel can only rely on electronic intelligence in Gaza, on the other hand. Hamas has an intelligence advantage on the ground in Gaza. Israel is going to bank on dynamic targeting and is likely to cause huge loss of lives as well. Urban warfare in Gaza is certainly going to be more bloodier and cruel than the one in Mosul. On the other hand, the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency, the UNRWA, has urged the opening of the Kerem Shalom crossing in order to allow continued flow of aid into Gaza. The UNRWA Commissioner, General Felipe Lazzarini, warned the UN Security Council that Palestinians in the besieged Gaza Strip were being subjected to forced displacement and collective punishment. Lazzarini said that a communication blackout over the weekend had accelerated the breaking down of civil order in Gaza. He warned that if the breakdown worsened, it will quote-unquote make extremely difficult, if not impossible, for the UN to continue operating in Gaza. United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, also told the international body and its Security Council that the Biden administration was concerned about a communication shutdown in the Gaza Strip. Riyad Mansour, the permanent observer of the state of Palestine to the United Nations, claimed that Israel was looking to depopulate the Gaza Strip of Palestinians and warned that the violence was spilling over to the West Bank as well.
The current siege imposed on Gaza is collective punishment. 2 weeks of full siege followed by the trickle of aid last week mean that basic services are crumbling. Medicine is running out. Food and water are running out. Fuel is running out. The streets of Gaza have started overflowing with sewage, which will cause a massive health hazard very soon. A further breakdown in civil order will make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for the largest UN agency in Gaza to continue operating. It will also make it impossible to bring in convoys.
And the Israeli Defense Forces have hit out at the UNRWA's reports, which suggested that the Gaza Strip was facing acute shortages of fuel and other necessary supplies. Israeli military spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, termed such reports by the United Nations agencies as quote-unquote inaccurate. Conricus said that Hamas had been storing fuel inside the Gaza Strip and that much of fuel would be enough to power the generators for many days to come. He suggested such an output could be used to run hospitals and the water pumps. A previous report by the UNRWA had stated that if fuel is not received into the Gaza Strip, then humanitarian operations will be forced to halt.
Same claims about lack of equipment and that Gaza may be forced to halt tonight if no fuel is delivered. I don't think that is accurate. And neither does the entire IDF. We responded to UNRWA's claim by referring them to where Hamas, which governs the Gaza Strip, stores fuel, both diesel fuel and other types of and benzene and other types of fuel. It's all inside the Gaza Strip, and there's enough for many days for hospitals and water pumps to run. Only the priorities are different. Hamas prefers to have all of the fuel for its warfighting capabilities, leaving civilians without it, and then international organizations ask for help, but who are they asking from?
Moving on, taking a look at some other international developments. Pakistan has ordered the expulsion of 1.7 million Afghan refugees from Pakistan. Pakistan blames the refugees for suicide bombings and other terrorist attacks that have plagued Pakistan in the last few months. Now, Pakistan is home to over 4 million Afghan refugees, according to Islamabad. Many came after the Taliban retook Afghanistan in the year 2021, but a large number have been present since the 1979 Soviet invasion. Cash-strapped Pakistan, navigating record inflation and a tough International Monetary Fund bailout program, also said undocumented migrants have drained its resources for decades on end. Many Afghan refugees are reluctant to return to Taliban-ruled Afghanistan. Women and girls in particular face grave risks returning to Afghanistan as the Taliban restricts women from working and education. The United Nations Refugee Agency, the UNHCR, and the International Organization for Migration said Pakistan's plans create quote-unquote serious protection risks for women and girls that are being forced to leave and go back to Afghanistan. Next up, stories with a little bit of a hint of climate change. That's again important for all of us to talk about. First up to Australia, where the country recorded its driest September on record, and this has accelerated an early start to fire seasons in Australia. Weather bureaus and Australian forecasts are telling about months of hot weather and below average rainfall in the coming months. Massive bushfires have engulfed southeast portions of Queensland, which has destroyed 45 homes and killed 2 people last week. More than 7,500 hectares of area is burning and out of control in the neighbouring state of New South Wales, which is only 40 kilometres from one of the Queensland fires. And wildfires not only specific to Australia. Bolivia continues to reel from the forest fires that took place on the 24th of this month in the forest close to Madidi National Park, a protected area in northwestern Bolivia that includes part of the Bolivian Amazon. According to a government report, there are 16 active forest fires in 4 departments of Bolivia, with the La Paz region having the most significant affected areas. Bolivian firefighters and volunteers continue to battle the raging fires. Helicopters have been deployed to help firefighters and authorities on the ground. And moving on, Hurricane Otis is continuing to wreaking havoc in Acapulco in Mexico. Nearly hundreds are either dead or missing in the wake of the hurricane. Governor of Guerrero said 45 people have been confirmed dead and 47 others are still missing after the storm hit the Mexican city on the 25th of this month. Hurricane Otis is considered a Category 5 storm, and Otis battered the resort city of Acapulco with winds of 266 kilometers per hour, flooding the city, tearing roofs from homes, hotels and other businesses, submerging vehicles and severing communications as well as road and air connections. Looting broke out in the wake of the storm as city's population of nearly 9 lakh became increasingly desperate for food and water. And that's all the time we have for you in this edition of Top Stories. Lots more coming right on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Hamas attacks Israel. Israel Defense Forces strike back at Hamas.